Congressman Tom Price from Georgia, the 6th District. Congressman Tom Price was my former congressman when I was in Georgia. And right now, my congressman is Randy Forbes. So I went from Tom Price to Randy Forbes. So I'm blessed with the best. And Congressman Price, also the vice chairman now of the House Budget Committee. Congressman, great to have you on.
Thanks, John, so much. You traded up in that deal. I don't mind telling you.
Great to have you on. So much to do. And I do have to say that the one thing I miss about being in Georgia is talking to you every week. So I'm so happy that you're on with us. Let's get right to the fiscal debates over the budget. You're right in the middle of it. You've made a major proposal a couple weeks ago. Can you lay that out for our listeners?
Yeah, we're in the House Republicans now are in the midst of a strategy to bring focus and attention to the fact that we have a spending debt crisis, not a revenue debt crisis. To that end, it's important that people appreciate that the federal government will collect more in tax revenue this year than at any year in the history of the republic. So the deficit, however, has gone up to $1.3 trillion. So we're in a spending debt crisis, not a revenue debt crisis. As Reagan used to say, it's not that we don't tax enough; it's that we spend too much.
Right.
So 3 weeks ago, we passed a No Budget, No Pay Act, which simply said to the Senate, you got to do your job. You got to pass a budget. If you don't, you won't get paid. And that was important because the Senate hasn't passed a budget in nearly 4 years. And if you don't pass a budget, you can't hold yourself accountable to anything. A couple of weeks ago, we passed a bill that was my bill called the Require a Plan Act. It simply said to the president, when you bring your budget to Congress, just let us know one thing. Let us know when it comes into balance. Let us know when the revenue coming in equals the spending going out. And that's important because for the past 4 years, the president hasn't brought a budget to Congress that ever balances, ever in the 75-year window that it's looked at. And that, along with this move on the sequester, which is really challenging, but we put up some alternative spending reductions. The continuing resolution, the budgets that will come out in April, and then the debt ceiling discussion and debate that will occur now in May. May 19th is the deadline for that. All of that is to bring focus on a spending debt crisis so that we can get our spending house in order. That will get our fiscal house in order. That will mean that the economy will begin to boom and jobs will be created. And it's all about that, creating jobs and get this economy rolling.
Congressman Price, let's get to sequester. A lot of people saying, well, the Republicans and President Obama, they're playing chicken with it. There's some conservatives now saying, hey, why don't we just go ahead, let sequester take hold. At least we're going to get some spending reductions. Where does Congressman Tom Price weigh in on that?
Well, as you and your listeners will recall, this sequester, the spending reductions of about $1.2 trillion over a 10-year period, were already, these are the ones that were negotiated in August of 2011.
Right.
This was the agreement for the debt ceiling increase in August of 2011. This isn't new, but it's just beginning to come into effect. In fact, it was supposed to start on January 1st, and the deal at the end of the year last year kicked it down the road to March 1st. The spending reductions are absolutely vital, again, because we have a spending debt crisis, not a revenue debt crisis. Where they occur is solely up to the president. The House Republicans have passed on 2 occasions a reprioritization, a bill that says, look, we don't believe across-the-board cuts are wise, and we believe that there's a better way to do this. The Senate Democrats, the Senate controlled by Democrats, has not done a single thing on that score. And the president simply gives a speech, gives no specifics on what he would do. So we don't think that across-the-board cuts are wise, but the president and the Senate Democrats haven't been working with us to mitigate this problem. And so it looks like they're going to go into effect. But I promise you, and I know your listeners are in an area that is defense-heavy.
Yes.
And Georgia is a state that has all sorts of wonderful relationships with the Department of Defense and a lot of people involved in that industry. But I promise you that reductions in real-time activity in the Department of Defense and reductions in the ability of our force to project its power and its weight, if those occur, it's because the president wants them to occur, not because of the sequester.
So we've got 9 days. What happens?
Well, my sense is that it will go into effect on March 1st because, again, the Democrat-controlled Senate hasn't done a thing and the president's given a speech. I think shortly thereafter that hopefully, as you talk about the adults in the room, the adults at the White House, and hopefully the adults over in the United States Senate will recognize that, yes, we do have a spending debt crisis, and we need to have some negotiations about where these spending reductions ought to occur. Again, the House Republicans have put up two solutions, two ways to do it without significant cuts in the defense arena and where other places where they would really hurt people. But we've got to have the spending reductions, otherwise we'll never get our economy rolling again.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Congressman. And now it seems like President Obama is really playing politics with it. A lot of the things that he's saying don't have anything to do, number one, with the sequester. Number two, now we hear today he's going on TV basically saying if the Republicans don't acquiesce, it's going to be some kind of economic spending Armageddon in the United States. How do you guys in the Republican caucus deal with that?
Well, it really is a shame, and this isn't a new story, but the president plays political games all the time, and playing political games is not what this country needs right now. We have huge challenges before us in the area of the economy, yes, but also in the area of health care and energy and national security, and this president continues to perpetually play political games and political posturing. He did so yesterday with his speech. And he troops out folks behind him as his political props, and then paints a straw man argument, which just doesn't help the political discourse. Instead of saying specifically what his alternative would be for the sequester, so it's not helpful. It's not leadership. It really is very, very sad for the greatest nation on earth to have a president that simply continues to perpetuate political game after political game.
It is so frustrating. This is the John Frederick Show, where we're chatting with Congressman Tom Price, M.D., from Georgia's 6th District, and he's the Vice Chairman of the House Budget Committee. Congressman, going to the debt ceiling, which has now been, as you said, can's been kicked down the road further to the end of May. What do you see happening with that?
Well, I think the tenor of what occurs with both the sequester and then the continuing resolution, the government funding mechanism at the end of March, and how the president, whether or not the president treats these as serious problems, will dictate the tone that we move into the debt ceiling debate with. I believe that again, this is a spending-driven debt crisis. Raising our debt ceiling without fundamental reforms in the area of our automatic spenders, the largest spending programs in government to save and strengthen and secure Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, and in addition, the possibility of fundamental tax reform so that our tax code actually encourages work and investment and economic activity. Those two things, if we did those two things, we would be able to absorb a significant letting off the steam of the debt ceiling, because we would begin to turn the economy around, bring in more revenue for the federal government, and get us on a path to a balanced budget in a 10-year period of time. That's our goal, and that's what we hope we'll be able to discuss with a president who stops playing political games.
That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and we certainly appreciate your leadership on that area. Turning to politics for a minute, Congressman Price, your colleague in the United States Senate from Georgia, two-term Senator Saxby Chambliss announced his retirement. There's been some talk for some time that yourself, that you might get into that race, and I think you said you're going to make an announcement in May. What are the criteria that you're laying out that is going to determine for you, Congressman, whether or not you do decide to run for the United States Senate?
Well, first, I want to thank Saxby Chambliss for his service. Spent 12 years in the United States Senate, and I believe 6 or 8 years in the House before that, and he's just to be commended for the service that he's given to our country. The discussion that we've just had about the fiscal challenges and fiscal crisis, spending-driven debt crisis that we have, are the things that are occupying my time right now as Vice Chairman of the Budget, and it would be irresponsible and unwise, I believe, to make any decision prior to getting through this time. So Betty and I, my wife and I, are working through this, but at this time, it's just not appropriate to make a decision.
Dr. Price, we can't thank you enough for the insight, and we hope to have you back again when you are ready to announce.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Take care. Y'all have a great day.